Hello YouTube, SentinalhMC here for episode 3 of my ReactorCraft tutorial series. So we're back here in our underwater base, and it's time to take a look at the machines from the power generation section of the handbook. These basic power generation machines are going to be used in your reactors to take the heat generated by them and turn them into usable shaft power. Right, so that's why I decided to have a video dedicated to these, because you're going to need to understand them in order to build your reactors. So yeah, let's start off with the steam boiler. So the steam boiler is very simple to craft. It's a reservoir, 4 base panels, and 4 steel ingots, and it looks like this. Now the steam boiler does not have a GUI. You can right click on it all you want. All it is basically a tank that you put water in, you heat it up. You can see it has a temperature rating. You heat it up, and when it gets hot enough, it outputs steam. Alright, and that's the steam that goes into the turbines. So it's a very, very simple machine. There's really nothing to it. But the steam boiler is going to be necessary for all of your reactors. Okay, now the steam lines are what you use to transport the steam, which is simply 3 liquid pipes and 6 wool. Get you 3 steam lines. So the steam line's not the cheapest thing in the world. So, but I mean, they're not expensive at all. All they are is liquid pipes and wool. But you are going to need quite a bit of wool, so maybe have a sheep farm. That's steam lines, and they look like this, and they connect together. You know, little pipes. I like the look of them. They're kind of cool. Little black pipes. And then you're going to need the steam grate. The steam grate is crafted with an iron bars, 4 steel ingots, 2 base panels, and a liquid pipe. And it looks like this. And what this does, what the steam grate does, and I think this is one of the coolest things, is that you don't just pipe the steam straight into the turbines. You pipe the steam into these steam grates, which actually releases the steam into the world as little blocks that flow through the turbines, which is really awesome. So these 3 things you basically connect together. Basically, you're using the steam lines to connect the steam boilers to the steam grates. Alright? Next, we have the actual turbines that will produce your shaft power. And these are really expensive. If you remember back from the gas engine, the gas turbine video, we made these compound turbines. Yeah, they're expensive. 2 turbines, 4 tungsten, and a shaft core. Anyway, the actual turbine is one of those, surrounded by more propeller blades. So these are a big investment, these turbines are. So you definitely want to be careful with these, because they can be broken, and you don't want them to break. And definitely don't want them to blow up, so make sure nothing bad can get to them. And we'll take a look at those in a second. The condenser is crafted like this: 3 cooling fins, 2 liquid pipes, a reservoir, 2 steel ingots, and a base panel. And what the condenser does, and I'll place this so you can see the bottom. What the condenser does is that it takes the steam and condenses it back into water or other fluid, whatever that fluid was. It's not strictly necessary on if you're using water in your steam boilers. You might just want to let that steam go away. But for me anyway, when I built a reactor and I was just venting the steam into the air, the block updates from all that steam was lagging me quite a bit. So if you don't have a powerful computer, then you may want to use the condenser anyway, even if you're using water as your fluid. So that's the condenser, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. We'll talk about all of these more in a bit. Then there's the heat exchanger, which is 4 cooling fins, 2 gold ingots, 2 liquid pipes, and an impeller. And now the heat exchanger is not strictly necessary for every reactor, but what the heat exchanger does is it takes a hot fluid in, you give it power, and then it heats itself up, and it will heat nearby blocks, usually steam boilers, and then output the now cooled liquid at the bottom, which you can pipe back into your reactor. So that's what the heat exchanger does, and we'll use that on the first reactor that I'm going to be building in the series, because that's the first reactor that I've gotten built. Alright, so then there's the pressurizer. The pressurizer is the counterpart to the condenser, because when the condenser recondenses the water, it's not in a form that you can use. So you have to run it through the pressurizer, which is 4 base panels, 2 glass panes, a liquid pipe, a compressor, and a shaft unit. And the pressurizer takes low pressure water in, and you give it power, and it outputs regular water that you can then throw back into steam boilers. Alright, so that's the blocks that we're going to be covering in this episode. And so if we come through this little expansion tunnel that I've built, we'll come into this room where we've got everything set up. Well, you know, minus the actual reactor. That's going to come next episode. But here we go. I like this room. I think it's pretty cool. Over here we have a turbine. Now, this is the biggest that the turbine can get. Okay. When you take the turbine block, and we'll do it over here, and you place it, it starts out really small. Looks like that. But then as you place more of them against that, they get bigger and bigger. You can place up to 5 turbines right next to each other in this line. If I place another one back here, it wouldn't be any bigger and it wouldn't do anything. So you place 5 of these, and they fit into a 5x5 area. Well, technically speaking, I think it's 7. I think, yeah, this is like it fits in like a 7x5 area, I think. Anyway, you build the turbine out like this, and the more of these sections you add, the more efficient the turbine becomes, because the longer that the steam remains in the turbine providing power. So, you know, if you're building a reactor and you have the resources and you're investing in a reactor, you've probably got the resources to go ahead and build 5 of these. So I would quite recommend. I would recommend building it. It's as large as you can, because it's just a straight up better. Yeah. Now these turbines, you got to be really careful with these turbines because they are very fragile. While these are spinning, if you or other mobs come into contact with these blades, it will damage the turbine, severely reducing power output until you repair it. And I tried right-clicking on it with propellers and other turbines and stuff, but it didn't work. If you then break the broken turbine, the damaged turbine section, it will not drop the actual turbine. It will drop little bits and pieces. You'll need to recraft it. Now, an important thing about this turbine is that you can't place it if there's not enough empty space around it. So I can't place one here because this thing is in the way, and these check an area around them. This little shroud I have built up around the turbine, it would not let me place the turbine blocks if this was already here. But once I placed the turbine down, it would let me place these, and it worked just fine. But it wouldn't let me place it while these were here. So you place your turbine first, and then build stuff up around it. In this case, I've just got some warning stuff and a little wall to try and prevent you from, just to make sure you can't accidentally walk into the turbine. Since we're underwater and in a closed environment, there's no, I would never build the turbine outside. There's no risk of mobs getting at it, so I don't have to worry about anything but myself damaging this turbine. Alright? And a full turbine like this, it does fit in a 7 high, 7 wide, and then this thing is 5. So yeah, it's a 7x7x5 space that this turbine fits in. And if you place any blocks that intersect with these turbine blades, the turbine will not turn. It will not work. You gotta be careful with that, because the only solid bit of this turbine, you see I can walk through the fins, are the center blocks. So if you're not careful, you might accidentally place a block like right here, and then these fins might stop you from seeing it, and then you'll wonder why your turbine isn't working, and you'll rip your hair out or rip something else that Sips does a lot. Been watching their series, but yeah, don't do that. So make sure that these turbine blades are completely unobstructed. Alright, so that's the turbine. This is going to be your bread and butter, these turbines. Most reactors will be able to run more than one, depends on how big you make it. And these will output quite substantial power once connected to a reactor, and you'll be able to see that next episode. Alright, now around the back here, I have the little system set up. Oh yeah, another thing. This is important. In previous versions of ReactorCraft, this was not necessary. But in version 25, you need to put lubricant into these turbines. That was a recent addition, and the turbines do chew through this at a pretty solid rate. So if you're using a version previous to version 25, then lubricant will be unnecessary. But if you're updating to version 25 and you may be wondering why these things aren't working, they need lubricant, and they do have a 64,000 millibucket internal tank, which is of course shared throughout the entire turbine multi-block, and you feed this in at this side, at the end here, the small end. Great. So what we've got set up over here is a steam boiler and some steam lines and a steam grate. Okay, like I said, you use the steam line to connect the steam boiler to steam grate. So when you do that, the steam line goes into the top of the steam boiler, and the liquid pipes for putting in water go in the bottom. That's the only ends that they'll connect to. And then I've got the steam line connected into this steam grate, and it can connect to the side just fine, or the bottom, or whatever. And you would place your steam grate directly underneath the small end of your turbine, right in the middle, so that when the steam spawns into the world and starts flowing up, it goes and hits the turbine, and then it flows in this direction. So the steam flows from the small end of the turbine to the large end. Alright, and that's pretty much all there is to the steam grate, steam line, and steam boiler. You just heat this thing up and put water in it, and then the steam comes out here and spins your turbine up, which is really nice. And then we've got our condensers here, because since we're underwater, obviously we can't vent the steam because it'll just stay up here forever. But like I said before, even when I was testing this in an outdoor area, it was all that steam rising up was causing some lag. It was causing some unusual things, like my turbine was constantly flashing and being weird and deforming itself. It was very odd. And then when I added condensers to immediately get rid of the steam, it didn't do that. So if you've got a weak computer, you might have to use condensers even if you're using water. But you see, I've got them set up here because I've found that it works quite well, because when the steam comes through the turbine, it will come out directly underneath this bedrock shaft, and then it'll hit the bedrock shaft and go off in one of these two directions, in which case the steam will encounter the condensers either way that it goes and be condensed, because these things don't require any power. It would be condensed into low pressure water, which will flow through this pipe, which I then have connected to the top of my pressurizer, which is what you have to do. Power goes in the bottom of the pressurizer, and it will repressurize the liquid, put it in a reservoir, which is just here as a buffer, and then flow back into the steam boiler. Since I'm going to put my reactor room over there, what I'll do once this demonstration is done is run the water back along this pipe, and there'll be another room over there where they will actually have the reactor. All right. So now over here, I've got the heat exchanger set up. So we'll go over the heat exchanger here. The heat exchanger, you use it if you're not heating your boilers directly by the reactor, like the high temperature gas reactor and the molten sodium reactor. You pump the hot, in this case hot carbon dioxide gas, into the heat exchanger. So basically this hot carbon dioxide gas drum and its fluid duct are standing in for a high temperature gas reactor, and which we'll build next episode. So you pump that into the heat exchanger, and if I go ahead and let me turn any eye off and turn that so that it will pump it in, you see it's got a 2,000 millibucket internal tank for hot carbon dioxide gas. So the hot carbon dioxide gas is now inside the heat exchanger, but it requires power in order to force that that hot, well, it says fluid, but it's a gas, through itself and then out the side, because what you'll do is you'll connect this up to a reservoir and then you'll feed it back into the reactor. Then the power that the heat exchanger requires is 512 radians per second at 16 newton meters. It requires 8,192 watts at 512 radians per second, which is 16 newton meters at 512 radians. And if I pull this lever and give it the power, you'll notice that there's now liquid fluid in the tank 1. It's got 700 millibuckets of carbon dioxide gas, and whenever this heat exchanger gets down to, I think, at 800 degrees, it will cycle through another bit. So what you would be doing with this heat exchanger is you would be putting steam boilers around it. So you would surround your heat exchanger with steam boilers, and then the heat exchanger would give that heat to the steam boilers, which would cool the heat exchanger and get it to run again. But you'll notice now that it's not running, and that's because the internal tank on this thing for carbon dioxide gas is full, and so we need to get it out. And the way we do that is by piping it out. Now, it says it's a gas, but it doesn't seem to have any problem exporting the carbon dioxide gas into these liquid pipes, which I find a bit odd, since it's a gas, and it should require gas ducts, and the gas ducts, they do work, obviously. So I'm not really sure why it accepts liquid pipes. It feels like it should only accept gas ducts. I don't know. But anyway, there you go. So I can box these off. That's what you would do with this heat exchanger, and you'll see that in the full build in the next video with the full build of the reactor. And we'll just maybe put 2 of these on there because I want to be able to look at it. is that you have 3 sides available for placing it, and that you see that the temperature for the heat exchanger is going down much more quickly, because it actually has blocks to impart that heat to, in this case the steam boilers, which are currently up over 800 C, so if it had water in them, then they would be able to output steam right now. Alright, so that's that. That's the heat exchanger, and we'll be using this in the next episode. So let's go ahead and simulate a reactor here by going in and actually picking up some ReactorCraft steam blocks. And I'll just place these in the world. And there we see that our turbine spun up and generated some power for us. But obviously it's turning down very quickly because there's no more steam. So what would be happening if you have an actual reactor here, and you'll see this next episode, is steam would just be pouring out of this constantly and keeping this going. You know, I really love the sound effect on these turbines. Oh, they sound awesome. Okay, so now we see that the condensers have produced some of this low pressure water. See here? And this low pressure water wants to go into this pressurizer. So if we turn it on, the pressurizer requires 16 kilowatts at 1024 Newton meters, which comes out to 16 radians per second. So we turn it on, and we'll just put some more steam blocks through here. And we'll notice that the pressurizer is outputting regular water into this reservoir. I did this reservoir wrong. Should have placed the reservoir 1 block higher. I'm sorry, I'm such a noob. Reservoir goes there because it has to output out the bottom. So what you'll see here is that this water is now flowing through this pipe, and once there's enough water in there, that will go into this steam boiler we have back here. So let's put some more steam in here just because. Let's put a bunch of steam in here, see what we can get the output to. Oh, I guess our system isn't perfect. We've got some steam up there. I'll have to add, or I'll have to do something to make it better. But we can see that the power got up to 2 megawatts. Steam is a bit random in how it works, up to 4 megawatts, and of course this will go much higher when you actually have a constant supply of steam rather than just placing steam blocks. And I'll take care of that steam in a bit. But you'll notice the steam just sort of bounces around up there, and yeah, if we weren't underwater, I could vent it up into the air. But we are underwater, so we have to collect it. And once it doesn't get any steam anymore, it'll slowly spin down. Alright, so these turbines can produce a lot of power. And if we come back here, we'll see that our steam boiler is filling up with water, the one we have back here. And if this was being heated by a heat exchanger, it would be producing steam, which would be coming through the steam line and going out the steam grate. So in the next episode, I will have the actual reactor, and I'm going to build it for you on camera, so I'm not going to have it pre-built. We're going to build it so that you can see exactly how I build it and how to make it work. And then we'll have it all connected up to this turbine. This will be sorted, and we'll have a fully working, our first fully functional reactor system. So I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I know that we didn't cover an actual reactor in this episode, but it's very important that we understand how these machines here work, because we will be using them in all the reactors, and we're not going to talk about them again in detail. So next episode we will be building a high temperature gas reactor, because this is the one that I've built personally, and I'm still testing the nuclear reactor, the fission reactor. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Well, they're all nuclear reactors, but anyway, you know what I mean. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned for the next episode in the ReactorCraft series, where we'll actually have the reactor. And yeah, so I'm SentinalH, and I'm signing out.